Well, hello, my Epictastic Nation. Welcome back to this channel if you are a returning member. If you are a new member, please consider hitting that subscribe button and such. And here we are with another one of these, even though I still have to release another one of my review roundups, even though I have to record the other half of the 2022 one again. But this is Epictastic Joshua, aka Joshua. I talk movies, TV, music, and anime. And I'm gonna do, of course, what I basically am doing is a 2024 review roundup. Now, if you don't know what a review roundup is, or as I should call it, what Joshua watched. So what that's supposed to be is it's supposed to be where I talk about a series of movies that I didn't either for one reason or other get a chance to review. Of course, not everything is going to be reviewed in this fashion because there's a few things I want to say for a standalone video, and some I want to do like a tryout with some live stream. 2024, I did miss out on quite a few other movies that I didn't get a chance to see, but I saw at least 110 movies and counting because I want to add at least a few more before I close that chapter off. But with this one, this is also to help my best and worst and most surprising, most disappointing. So this is something that, of course, I wanted to do on my own. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to consider hitting that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you won't miss more videos like this. Also, all my social media links are in the description box down below. And if you would like to send me anything from my Amazon wish list, the safest way to do that is in the description box down below. As well, if you would like to send me any money to my Cash App or Chime, you can definitely do that as well. So, there are some movies. I picked 10 movies here, and this is not going to be a very long videos, so I'm gonna try and go through these as fast as I can, and there will be time codes there. So we're gonna go ahead and just get started with the very first movie I chose, which is Self-Reliance. And so Self-Reliance, this was directed by Jake Johnson in his directorial debut, and this stars him, Anna Kendrick, Emily Hampshire, Mary Holland, Natalie Morales, and Christopher Lloyd. And pretty much this is one of the more underrated gems here. I thought this one was actually pretty underrated for what it was. Now, this is a movie that it just kind of came and went on Hulu. I did hear some people talk about it, but I don't think enough people talk about it. And essentially the premise of this movie, of course, is that it's pretty much what you're expecting when it comes to a movie like this. But it's a very interesting premise that I liked as well when it comes to it. Self-Reliance basically tells the story about a man is offered $1 million to play a game in which hunters try and kill him. So he thinks he has found the perfect loophole, and so they can only attack him when he's alone. But the only problem is that none of his friends believe that this game is actually real. So essentially, I'll say this. I'll just go into my quick thoughts with this. Like I said, I don't want to be here for at least 3.5 hours with each movie. So I'm just going to go through at least for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes or less to talk about my thoughts here. This is a solid directorial effort from Jake Johnson. The story, I will say, is the simplest little story. I very much appreciate the fact that this is a simple story from Jake Johnson. Of course, this is something that we have seen before, but I thought in the way is done, I thought despite the tone being a little uneven, I thought would say there's moments where the movie is beautifully poetic and poignant in the themes that it's trying to do. And this is kind of more on the lines of a dark romantic comedy, of course. It's not as crazy as you would think it was going to be with this idea, but I will say it is a pretty interesting idea that it uses for the most part. And I do like the idea that the movie has, and there's a lot of heart that Jake Johnson brings to his direction, but also his writing here. I also will say that is another thing I do think the movie does do quite well. And I think for the film that you're getting, the movie definitely does commits. It commits to what it sets out to be. It doesn't try to be nothing else. It doesn't try to be some game changer. It just wants to be a very interesting and simple movie for what it is. And that is the thing I will appreciate and I do give credit for when it comes to this movie, is that it wants to commit to what it is and not try to be anything else that it sets out to be. That's what I really like when it comes to the movie. Also, I will say, acting standpoint, everyone in this movie is good. Everyone does a good job. You got Jake Johnson as always, who he's just very funny. I like Jake Johnson. He's a very funny guy. In Spider-Verse, 21 Jump Street, and he's really good here, and he does a very strong job for his first directorial project. But I will also say the thing I was very impressed with when it comes to the movie is also the rest of the cast. I loved Anna Kendrick, of course. Anna Kendrick, she's always great, and such a phenomenal, talented actress with so much commitment that she gives. And I will say she is awesome in this movie. Natalie Morales, Mary Holland, and Emily Hampshire are also very good as well. You also have cameos like Andy Samberg in here, and a few other cameos. But I will say overall, it does work in the movie's favor. Some cameos I like more than others, but I overall will say I did enjoy a lot of what this was going on here. And Christopher Lloyd as Dennis Walcott, I thought was actually pretty good as well. So everyone, the acting game was very solid. They all brought their A game, and they just all really committed to the game. Each of the actors does a very good job. The cinematography, from a technical aspect, cinematography and editing and music is absolutely very good. The movie is an hour and 27 minutes long. It gets you straight in and it gets you straight out, and it does not pull any punches. So it's a very quick movie if you want to get out of the movie very quickly and very nicely. I will say some of my issues with, I think some of the humor is not very good here, and there are some moments where I think some of the humor could have used a little bit more of a rewrite. There's also some moments in this movie where I feel like that despite a lot of best efforts with this romance, it needed a lot more time to delve into it, because when you get into this romance, the romance isn't really as interesting or entertaining as I thought it could have been. But I'll say for the most part, it does lend itself quite well to what you're getting there. So I will say it does a fine job at that, but those are really my only real issues when it comes to the movie. But overall, if you are looking for just a simple little comedy drama from a directorial debut actor doing his first directed movie, look no further than this. This was actually a pretty decent movie to watch on Hulu. A lot more people should have watched this and should have talked about it. I thought this was pretty underappreciated, and I'm going to give this one a highly recommended. Now, this next one here is one of two movies from this actress I really like, Camila Mendes, of course. This movie is called Upgraded, and this was directed by Carlson Young, and it stars Camila Mendes and also Archie Renault, and there's also Marissa Tomei and Lena Olin and Anthony Stewart Head. And the simple premise of this one is that we follow Anna, and she is an ambitious intern dreaming of a career in the art world while trying to impress her demanding boss, Claire. When she's upgraded to first class on a work trip, she meets Will, who is this very handsome man who mistakes her for her boss. A white lie that sets off a glamorous chain of events, romance, and opportunity until her fib threatens to surface. This one I just went into pretty blind, and I would say that this about Upgraded. This is a very decent little film. I thought this was decent enough for what it was. I really thought that Camila Mendes. Now, outside of Riverdale, I will say she is trying her best to make a name for herself, but you know what? I have never seen The Blazing World from Carson Young, but I've heard that's actually a pretty solid movie for what we got. And I will say here, his directing is actually, well, her direction is actually pretty good. I almost said him, but it has a little bit of the Devil Wears Prada type style to it, but it's not not ripping off the Devil Wears Prada. But this is a modern day retelling of the classic fairy tale Cinderella, which is pretty much you getting exactly what you come with what I described that premise. The boss is being an ass. She's having to go go talk to these people at on first class, and also she also is dealing with to live with her sister Vivian and the boyfriend, and also she wants to be an artist. So there's a pretty much a familiar territory going around here, but I think the way the movie's executed makes it a lot more interesting. There are some good attempts at comedy here, and there are some good attempts at legit romance that I actually really enjoy here. And I will say here that the thing I really enjoyed about this the most was Camila Mendes. My gosh, I love Camila Mendes. I think she's a very strong actress. Honestly, between her and Madeleine Pesch, she was my favorite character on Riverdale for a little while. But she is a great actress, and I've been waiting for Camila Mendes to get that one movie where she could really show us how good she is. And I'm happy where she has another script where she's given lots of work with here. And she really commits and does a very strong job here. I like her chemistry with Archie Renault is great, and they work very well together. Archie Renault, who was in Alien Romulus, I thought he did a pretty decent job as the love interest here. They work well together. It also helps that her character, as well as this character, is very fun to watch. I really do enjoy their chemistry together. I will also say Lena Olin, who I have not seen in the movie since Casanova and Queen of the Damned. She was also very good here. Thomas Kretschmann was good. You also had Gregory Montel. Just the performances in here were very good and very strong for the most part. But Marissa Tomei, easily, she just seems like she is having the time of her life. And she really does commit, and she really has a lot of fun in what she's going for her. She knows that this is not some Academy Award winning project, but she just eats it up a lot, and I really did enjoy a lot of what she was given here. You also have Anthony Stewart Head. Yes, Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer is in this movie, and I thought he did a good job as Julian Marks. So I will say acting is very good here. Like I said, the direction by Carson Young is pretty competent, it's pretty entertaining, and it's pretty interesting to see. So that is some very strong direction that I actually really quite liked. And I will say you did a very strong job here, Carson Young. Now I want to see The Blazing World and see how that ends. Where the movie does stumble for me, before I get into there, I will say I do think the cinematography looks great for a streaming service movie, and Amazon Prime Video. The music and editing are also pretty good, and this is an hour and 44 minutes of a decent little love story, so I definitely quite enjoyed that. Also, I will say the soundtrack here was actually decently handled and decently put together here. So I will say that's one of the more entertaining things about it. I will say the third act does have the usual cliches that traps of a rom-com film, and it does make the movie here feel a little long, but it doesn't get to the point where it's just sitting there not actually being what you're setting out to be. But I will say this is a silly romance comedy that's not trying to take itself too seriously, and there's a decent amount of fun moments to make it work. And I will also say the lie of this movie here can be a little much for some people to buy into, which I definitely don't mind the way it was handled. But I will say that could be a turn off for some people. But you know what? I actually quite enjoy that line, that part of the movie. But ultimately, I will say this is once again another interesting little movie here that I was genuinely entertained by. Again, it's not great, it's not going for Oscars, but I think because of Camila Mendez and the rest of the cast and the way the movie is directed, this is a movie that is entertainingly watchable at its best. Again, go into it knowing that you're just going to get a simple romance comedy, expect some cliches, and I think you'll quite enjoy this. I'm going to give this one a highly recommended as well. I quite really enjoyed this a lot. Now, switching gears a bit, so talking about a little drama here. So this next one here I'm actually going to talk about is Ezra. This was one of the most genuine surprises here. This was something very light, and another one of those showcases that shows that movies about autism can be done, and it will be done. First off, I will say this movie is done quite well. I will say the premise of this movie is definitely great, and this was a movie that is kind of one of my favorites of last year, kind of also underrated. So you have a stand-up comedian who's trying to do right by living with his father and struggling to co-parent his autistic son Ezra with his ex-wife. So when forced to confront the reality about their son's future, Max and Ezra embark on a road trip that transcends an impact on both of their lives. And I thought that this was just a genuine sweet movie. I really enjoyed this. This was just a very nice little movie that's very lighthearted, and this is how you portray autism. The Temple of Grandin and the character in Cha Cha real smooth. You hear me, music? Do you hear me, Sia? This is how you portray autism. Not whatever that was in music, because that movie was a piece of crap. But I will say the relationship with his ex-wife having complications, along with this idea of Max having to deal with this, I think is actually very great here. And there are some very good moments here that I was just very thought out. It's beautiful. It kind of just, it hits your heart, and that's one of the things I really do like about this movie, is that this movie was not afraid to touch heartstrings. It's also a movie that really does try to go into the deeper meanings of what it's trying to say, but it does it very well. It's beautiful, and it's very moving to watch here by Tony Goldwyn. And as someone who speaks as a person of autism, I can definitely agree that this spoke to me in the way that Cha Cha's Real Smooth did, in terms of Dakota Johnson and her character taking on an autistic daughter and navigating her through life. And I will say, from technical aspects, such as cinematography and editing and music, I thought that's all very well done here. It's really well handled in the way that it wants to go for it. I definitely quite enjoyed a lot of how it turned out. I also can say that the performances by everyone in this cast was very good. You have real life couple Bobby Cannavale and Rose Byrne doing a great job here as Max, and of course the mother of Ezra. I think they both do a really strong job here. Robert De Niro, this is one of his better performances in a while, and I will say he was fantastic as well. I thought that he really gave a lot more of personality and a lot of greatness to his character. But I will say the biggest standout for me was William Fitzgerald, rolled as Ezra. He's having to play an autistic character, and I will say the way he does it is very well done. And you could tell that the writer and director, he spent years on the script, inspired by his relationship with his own autistic child and the own breakup of his marriage due to the teenage years. But it was the ultimate product for him, knowing that he did not need to fix his son's autism. So that I actually thought was very good here, and I really thought the film was fantastic in doing that. The other actors in this movie, like Whoopi Goldberg and Vera Farmiga and Rainn Wilson and Tony Goldwyn, all of them do a very strong job here. And I'm not sure if William Fitzgerald, if he's actually autistic, then I will be shocked. But he is a star on the rise. And by the end of this movie, I felt empowered by this. I felt like I'm still here as an autistic person, and no one will tell me otherwise. So that I actually will say that's actually very good. But absolute, I will say the only issues with is that you do see where this is gonna go from a mile away. I will say that, but I will say in terms of the way the movie handles it, is actually a very beautiful story that really did touch on a lot of what it's setting out to do. Also say that, of course, it did take a while for the movie to get going, but as I was watching the movie, I was just sitting there very much smiling and happy at the fact that I get to watch a movie that portrays something I'm very passionate about, that I personally live with, very right. And that is what I really enjoy about this movie, is that it was willing to portray this stuff right, and it did not shy away from it. So I actually really quite enjoyed how this movie was able to handle it and handle the portrayal of autism. So overall, this is definitely one of my favorite movies of last year, and one of the more underrated gems that if you have not seen, get on it. I think it's actually a very good movie, and if even if you're not autistic, you will walk away feeling something with this movie. This is something I really did enjoy, and I'm gonna give Daddio, I'm gonna give Ezra an Epictastic. Is Daddio. This is of course directed and written by Christy Hall, and this stars Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn. This should be an easy one of the movies here to talk about, because there's not a lot I can say on it. But the premise of this movie is that we have a woman that gets to a taxi at a New York airport and gradually tells the driver about her unfortunate decisions that led to her an affair with a married man. The driver also reveals more about his life as well. So pretty much for an hour and 40 minutes, you're basically watching these two talk about each other's lives to each other. And this movie was underrated. This was a very good hidden gem. I really quite liked this movie. This was one of the more underseen and underrated films. This is a simple story that is about two people talking and communicating about the past and present, relationships, power dynamics, sex, also loss and vulnerability, with a competent first-time writing and director here doing her very best. And that's the one thing I was really enjoying it too. The script is able to keep you engaged and has a lot of great editing here with the frames. This is a slow burn, and it really does know that it's a slow burn. So this is not gonna be a movie for everyone. So I will say that here. And if you are someone who doesn't like a lot of character interactions, you're not gonna like this movie as much, because this is a movie that is going to require you to sit down and watch this movie and just really take this movie in for what it is. And I took it in for what it is. This movie has some touching moments. It has some great acting here that I thought was very strong. And overall, I was just really enthralled by this. This was something I actually quite liked a lot, and it really just stuck the landing in terms of what the movie was actually doing. So it really had a lot to prove in terms of what said we were doing. And for that, I give it a very strong, huge credit, because Christy Hall could have easily made this a lot more complicated and a lot more ambitious, but she chose to go on the quieter side of things and just make it a lot more entertaining to watch and a lot more interesting to watch. So that, I think, really did get in the way in some great moments, but it does it in a good way. Cinematography, editing, and music is all very top notch, of course. Dakota Johnson, say whatever you want about her. I think Dakota Johnson is a very good actress. It's just some of the movies that she's been in between this and other good projects, like the movies like Madam Web, which was clearly a misuse of her talents, as well as movies like the 50 Shades trilogy, which again, I've never seen those movies. I don't ever have the interest to watch those movies either, so don't ask me. But I will say, this is one of her better performances. She is great in this movie. You also have Sean Penn in this movie, who does a really good job. Say whatever you want about him as a person, but as an actor, that man can act. And I really did enjoy a lot of what they would give her. It's just them for most of the movie, but I will say they make the most of what they have. And it really did take you on a very interesting journey. My only real gripe is that this is a little bit too short, on the short side, but I will say that's really my only gripe, because when the rest of this movie is doing good, the rest of this movie is good, because everything else in this is just great. So I really enjoyed a lot of that here. So overall, a bit of a hidden gem, but I will say that this was actually a far more competent movie than what I thought this was going to be. It's not perfect. I don't think it's one of the greatest movies you'll ever watch, but I will say for a movie like this, I really did like. This had a lot of competency in it. So overall, this one will get an Epictastic out. Because, alright, so here's the thing about My Spy 2. I'm someone who thought the first My Spy movie was just okay, but it was rather an average film. And an average film is more than I can say. But this is a movie I just thought was okay, but it wasn't great. But I will say, going into My Spy 2, I did like this one a little more. Now, of course, this is not good. It's not amazing. It's not something I will say you have to go see it. But I will say for what it is, this one was decent, but it still carries the same amount of flaws when it comes to this. But I just want to go into the premise a bit. The premise here is the same. JJ is a veteran CIA agent, reunites with his protege Sophie, and in order to prevent a nuclear plot target from targeting the Vatican. This, like I said, this movie was just okay. I don't really have a whole lot to say when it comes to this movie, because this movie was just but this was a movie that I felt like just really could have been a lot better and could have done a lot more in terms of the premise of what you're doing. Now, I'm not expecting this to be the greatest thing ever. I know my friend John Avenger is going to look at me in these comments and be like, what did you expect? I'm not expecting everything to be the greatest thing ever. I just was expecting this to be at least a little better than the last movie. But I'll say this, I did enjoy this one to a certain extent, because this one they did put some effort here. They did put a lot more time into having a more interesting story, and that was the thing I was really interested with when it comes to it, is that they wanted to have a lot more story here, a lot more interesting characters. So I really did like a lot of what this one had to go on for. I'll say it does take me back to the early 2000s kid action comedy movies that I used to get growing up. So it's kind of like that going into it, and so I really thought that it did its job well in that department. So I'm definitely getting what I'm coming here for. So it definitely does give you that. I just think what stops you here is, once again, you have a very generic, lazily put together villain, which I'll say the villain here, his plan is not great whatsoever. I can also simply say, once again, I'm gonna criticize this, so just get used to it. This movie was just a little bit long here, and there were some moments there was a lot of CGI, which I'm not sure if this was filmed during the pandemic, but if it was, I could kind of give them a little bit of a pass. But some of that CG, man, you could have done a lot better in terms of that CGI, because what the hell was that? Some of it does look fine, but wow, you could do a lot better than that. Italy is a lovely country to see. I will say that. Italy looks beautiful. Y'all making somebody want to go to Italy. But I will say, in terms of what this was going for, I get what the movie was going for, and I get what the movie was trying to do. So this is something I think is still very much entertaining enough. But I will say, cinematography, action-wise, humor-wise, there's still some decent moments of humor. I will give the movie that. The humor is actually very competent in this, and I really did like some of that comedy. But I will also say, this is one of the film's biggest detriments, is that I will say that some of it is a little bit on the camp to kiddie side. And I know these are for kids, but there's moments where it feels like you could have just pushed a little bit more hard with some of this kid-friendly stuff. But overall, like I said, that wasn't really a problem. I did like the performances, of course, by Dave Bautista, of course, and Chloe Coleman. They do a very strong job here as well. It's good to see Dave Bautista doing more things like this, because he is a very capable actor. The rest of the supporting cast here is very good here. Some of the comedy landed for me, and also I will say the direction here was better this time around. So I will say this movie is not amazing by any means necessary, and my issues with this movie are still there here. But this is a movie I can clearly say that this was enjoyable nevertheless, and I did enjoy this for what we got. It's not amazing or anything. Again, I'm not saying this is some groundbreaking achievement, but it's something I feel like you could watch at least only once. So you can definitely check this out on Prime Video and stream it. Oh my god. Here we are with one of the worst movies of last year, and something I was actually pretty interested in. Mother of the Bride. I just have one question for you, Mark Waters. How the hell did this happen? What happened here? Seriously, what happened here? You went from Mean Girls to Freaky Friday to now stuff between this, He's All That, and in that damn Vampire Academy movie. What happened? No, seriously, what happened? Because this was not good at all. I don't know who fell asleep at the wheel with this, but this was just a very painful, dull experience. And it's just very annoying, very irritating, very obnoxious. And also, considering the fact that you have actors like Brooke Shields and Miranda Cosgrove in, this was a big, gigantic letdown. So, the premise of this movie, if you will, if anyone cares, I'm going to talk about this premise anyway. The plot of this generic movie is stunned by her daughter's bombshell wedding announcement. Lana soon faces another shock. The groom's father is the man who broke her heart years ago. And no, this is not a ripoff of Mother of the Bride, nor is it trying to be like Mother of the Bride. Oh my god, man. Miranda, between this and Despicable Me 4, I don't know what's going on with Miranda Cosgrove. She's getting paid good money, but come on, Miranda Cosgrove. You've done better stuff like iCarly and shit, for God's sakes. You can do better than this. This is not very good at all. Now, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. No. This is just a disappointingly generic, bland, lame film that really doesn't do much for me here. Now, I'll say this. This is pretty much the most cliched romantic comedy that you could think of and have a huge like a charm, interest, and fun, and that's what this movie is. This movie has little to no life into it and no energy into it, and it seriously baffles me. This is the same director as Mean Girls, Freaky Friday, The Spiderwick Chronicles, Bad Santa 2, Magic Camp, which was pretty decent, I'm not gonna lie, Mr. Popper's Penguins, Vampire Academy, Bad Santa 2, and He's All That. What happened? Did you just fall off a cliff here, man? We just have the year after, before this, you just had Anyone But You in 2023. What the hell happened here? I do not fucking know, but someone fell asleep at the wheel, because this is one of the most laziest comedies I've ever seen here. I'll start off with some positives, of course. First off, the movie has beautiful locations. The location of Thailand is actually very good. I will say the location looks real good. It looks real good for the budget you have. It better look like something for what it is. I will give it that. The cinematography looks fine. It's competent enough. It's not great. It's fine. There are some moments where I did laugh as such. Also, like I said, it's nice seeing Miranda Cosgrove doing something like that's not Despicable Me or iCarly. It's great to see her shine in another movie again. And I'll say Brooke Shields, she's still a beautiful woman to this day, but she did a very good job here for what she's given. Also, you have Michael McDonald and Wilson Cruz. Also, you have Benjamin Bratton here and the guy from The Gifted, Sean Teal. Sean Teal. Also, Rachel Harris and Chad Michael Murray is a complete waste in here. So, this movie, the acting is fine all the way around. It's lucky it's got that going for it, because everything else in this movie is just completely insufferable here. And this movie tries way too hard to do a lot here. It tries to bring this examination of social media culture, which this could have worked better if it was a better movie, but I'm sorry, you picked the wrong damn movie to do it in, because I'm sorry, this movie is not funny when it comes to that. You just failed horribly with that. Not only that, you failed with pretty much narrative devices with this couple played by Wilson Cruz and Michael McDonald. They really just in here to be the exposition dump, and I don't have a problem with them being a couple of a certain community. I do not have a problem with that whatsoever. The problem is, every single line that comes out of these guys' mouth, it becomes very comical and not in a good way. I'm sitting here watching a bad MTV skit, and I'm like, why is this even a thing? I'm like, my gosh. This was just not very entertaining for me and my enjoyment to watch, because I was sitting there pretty much pissed off and angry watching this. I was also pretty bored for 90 minutes. This feels like 7.5 hours. It just would never freaking end. Not one joke, aside from a few, was making me laugh. And I'm just sitting there like, you really are taking an L for this, Mark Waters, because I don't know what the hell is going on with you, but someone clearly has fell asleep at the wheel, because this is one of the most inconceivable, incomprehensible films that I have seen in my 26 years of life. I don't know what happened, but someone fell asleep at the wheel, and it just feels like whoever the hell wrote the script is like, wow, you couldn't even make something a lot better out of it. So, wow, this was bad, man. This was freaking bad, man. And on top of that, I also will say, to top it all off here, the film's attempts at comedy in other places, and the romance is not very strong. And when you have movies like Ticket to Paradise and Anyone But You, they did have some predictable factors, but I cared more about the romance stuff. And I felt more committed to making me laugh and making me feel interested. This movie barely scratches the surface, and it just really does not do it in the best way possible here. None of the characters are given any meaningful arcs, anything interesting or development. And not only that, the story, like I said, is about as predictable as a junkyard dog. And I don't know what happened with Mark Waters, but this man either make a good movie again, get something better, and get back on the horse, or just stop at this point, because this Netflix shit was really hurting you. This is not bad by any means necessary. It's not even the worst movie of 2024 for me. This is just a pretty generic, disappointing rom-com. Very few things here, but this movie shows me very little of what it has to offer, and it is quite a disappointing movie, to say the least. So I would not recommend Mother of the Bride whatsoever. Next movie here on this list is Jim Henson's Idea Man, and this is just a look at fans of Jim Henson, interspersed with footage from his work, including Wilkins and Watkins commercials that were previously lost. And this is pretty much telling a story about how this man pretty much did a lot for what he did in Puppeteer, from his early years to the creation of Sesame Street, to The Dark Crystal, to the Muppets, and also dealing with his creative and romantic relationship with his wife. And this, I thought, was actually a very strong documentary. This was a very strong documentary. This is a very rich and warm interview and overview into the late Jim Henson. And the late Jim Henson, we have never forgotten what he's done for this. You can tell that Ron Howard is the director. He really wanted to tell this story about his life, and I really did enjoy it. I thought it was really fantastic here. And partnering with Disney Plus and with the Jim Henson family, this worked a lot better than what I thought it was going to be, because it worked very well in terms of the interviews here. And it was just something I really thought was just a fascinating look into his life. And Jim Henson, he did a lot for puppetry animation, and it is sad that we did lose a great talent like him to pneumonia, but the legacy of Jim Henson has lived on to this day with a lot of his creation. Even when he was not feeling well in the last years of his life, the man never really stopped creating. Of course, you have some great interviews with people here that really did work with him. You got archive footage of him. You have Frank Oz, David Goelz, Fran Brier, Rita Moreno, Brian Henson, Lisa Henson and his kids, Jennifer Connelly, Heather Henson, Alex Rotman, Cheryl Henson, Bonnie Erickson, Jane Henson, Orson Welles. Just is so many interviews and archival footage that they cobbled together to make one of the more fascinating and beautiful documentaries that I really thought was just very entertaining to watch, and really just put a lot of greatness in there. And I really thought it did a very strong job in terms of what it was doing. I loved the way they handled this. It was actually really good. I thought it was so competent to see, and the fact that they really took their time making this documentary and talk about one of the most celebrated properties and celebrated men was absolutely amazing here. And it does, the only real downside when it comes to this documentary is that it doesn't really fully dive into his personal tragedies as much as I would like to have been. But I did get sentimental watching this, and because of that, this is a documentary because knowing the tragedy of Jim Henson, while I choose to celebrate his life and honor his legacy with the movies he's done and shows he's done, this is something that I'm only going to ever watch at least once and not really have the desire to go back to whatsoever. So that is something that, of course, that is going to plague me, of course, from wanting to go back and watch this again. But overall, I will say you do get as much information to know about him and what he was like. As devastating as it is, as tragedy as his life is, I thought that this was just a very strong documentary. So if you're a fan of puppetry and a fan of Jim Henson and want to know the legacy of his work, I would say give this a shot. For me, this isn't Epictastic, but this is something that I will never watch again. But Musica, this was a coming-of-age drama directed by Rudy Mancuso in his directorial debut, and this one was actually pretty enjoyable and actually pretty likable. I really did enjoy this. This is based on a real-life story, partly by Rudy's own authentic experience. So the premise of this movie, of course, is, of course, we're following Camila Mendes and you're following our lead guy, of course, as they're just pretty much going through a little bit of a journey together, which I thought is always a very interesting. But I will say this premise here was actually very fun to watch. This premise, of course, you're seeing that a young man played by the music in his head has come to terms with an uncertain future while balancing love, family, and the Brazilian culture in New Jersey. And this was actually very good. I really did like what this one had to offer, and this one just kind of worked for me. I will say I thought that this was actually a very strong film. Now, of course, you're going to get your classic musical numbers. You're going to get your musical numbers that are just very entertaining as such. But I will say this was actually done with someone with creative vision. And there's a lot of energy and passion that's put into it that you definitely feel. And you definitely feel that passion when it comes to this movie. And I'll say it was very well done. It's the best kind of creative energy here that is just so very interesting, and I very much like it here. And the movie just really just said is going to give you a musical film that, while it's something familiar, they wanna just put you into a little bit of a scenario where they want you to have fun, and they want you to just enjoy yourself. That is the number one thing I must give this movie credit for, is that it wants you to enjoy yourself. And to see what the results here, to see that Rudy Mancuso wrote and directed this movie here. So I very much loved a lot of what is going on here when it comes to this movie. There are some familiar story beats, and the third act doesn't quite work out as well as it should have, but there's just so much greatness and so much energy to appreciate about a movie like this that is willing to just go for it and just have fun and be committed. And I think Rudy Mancuso just did a very strong job in the directing department. It's a really well directed movie. It's also very decently written. So I very much liked a lot of what it was going for. So it was just very good here. So I definitely really liked a lot of what the film set out to do. The story here is actually very good here, but the musical portions I thought were actually very fun, especially what they do with musical puppets. That was very heartwarming and also very cool to see. Of course, I really did like what this was going for in terms of the dance. Of course, I very much loved it here, and it was just very strong here. And I will say there are some musical numbers where some of the music could have been strong, and in some areas I agree, but it does a really strong job at combining the music with the story and doing something a bit different than some other movies here. And this is something I definitely must give credit to where credit is due, because if you don't do anything different, your movie kind of crumbles, and that's the number one thing you do not want to do, is have your movie crumble. Acting, of course, is great. Camila Mendes, always good. I just talked about her in Upgraded, but I really will say her performance was very good. She has a nice relationship with Rudy. It's filled to the brim with charm and some energy, so I very much can appreciate a lot of what that was going on with, and I definitely really liked it. It turned out to be very, very strong. So that is something I definitely must compliment. And I will say the rest of the cast is very good here. You have his mother, which she's not the best actress here, but I'll say she does a very good job here. And so I really enjoy it. You also have JB Smoove here in the supporting cast, so it's a very good supporting cast here. Cinematography and the filmmaking and such is very well done here, and the Brazilian Portuguese language is there, but I really enjoyed that part of the culture, and I really did like a lot of what that would have to offer. It has its issues with some of the Brazilian language. Some of the music isn't as strong as some others, and I will say the romance does go the usual way. But if you're willing to hold on and enjoy this for what it is, I will say this is actually quite enjoyable. And for me, I expected this to be so much fun, and this was just a very strong, impressive effort from a first-time director. So that I actually think is pretty strong in its own right. Didi, this movie was amazing, and this movie was fantastic. This is a beautiful coming-of-age drama that has a great story that is so relatable. And someone who grew up in the 2000s, and I have 2000s nostalgia, I felt this near and dear to my heart, because this was actually so great. I loved this. This was actually really strong. Essentially, like I say, during the last month of summer before high school, an impressionable 13-year-old Taiwanese American boy learns what family can't teach him: how to skate, how to love his family, and how to flirt. This movie was great, man. I loved this. This was just such a good movie. Such a good movie. And being a kid in 2008, I didn't flirt with anyone or any girls during my school year times. I was just more focused on making sure I get schoolwork done and being the one getting the good grades, and also just enjoying the school life, enjoying my own life and my own passions. But I will say I could definitely relate to Chris and the things that Chris experienced. That if I actually did that and kissed a girl or flirted with a girl, I would have really liked. The movie is very funny, it has some hard hitting moments, and it has some good detail to it. The attention to detail is awesome. Now, I'm very happy that I gave this movie a watch because I thought the constant switching of personalities and the need to reinvent yourself is something that we find in ourselves during a lot of our life. And I could definitely relate to that. And it did struck a chord with me. But also seeing the dawn of adolescence was also something that really struck a chord with me, because I just thought it was so beautifully well handled, and it was just such an alluring and beautiful, heart-wrenching story that I was just sitting there really taking it all in. I'm like, I'm impressed by this. This is so good. I'm really having fun watching this movie. You're gonna get laugh, you're gonna cry, you will get emotional, but I think the most part the movie set out to do its job very, very well, and it really committed to the game. It just really said, this is gonna be a great film and you're gonna get some great emotions out of it. To top it all off, I will say the direction in this movie is so incredible. I love the direction here. It's fantastic, it's heartfelt. You get to care about what's going on, and I really was just so enthralled by what was going on in this movie. It's so beautiful, and I was really liking sitting here watching this, saying this is something I can definitely relate to. And is something that we have seen before, but it's done in the eyes of Shawn Wayne's writing and direction and the cinematography. And I was invested the whole way in the overall situation. I thought it was just such an incredible way to go about it, because it's so good in terms of the story and just everyone all around. The performances all around by this entire cast. Isaac Wang does a very good job, and he gives a phenomenal performance in here. Chris Wang is very simple but interesting character that you fall in love with. Joan Chen is definitely the heart of the movie. Every scene that she has, you feel her emotions, because this is why I never take my mother or my family for granted, because the sacrifices that a mother will go to make sure the parents, their kids, especially these young boys or young women, will have what they need, I just thought was just so beautiful, and it was very relatable, and you can feel the emotions, especially from the facial acting and body language. It's just very good stuff like that is why I was really impressed with the movie and how it turned out. And recapturing the year of 2008 is something that was very good. You get some screen life elements, the chat room and the message programs back in the day, like AIM. It's impressive how far as it goes. They don't stick around very long, but you know what? It does have a long-lasting impact that was very good. The writing and the direction, like I said, is what makes this movie good. It keeps it grounded, it keeps it focused, and it keeps it combined with so much competency there. And it's kind of a shame this movie didn't kind of went overlook at the Academy Awards, because this would have been a great Oscar contender. But for his directorial debut, Shawn Wang, I want to see what he does next. Cinematography is fantastic. It's also very well edited. The music is also really good here. And just overall, this was something I was really impressed and I was really enjoying by the time the movie ended. This was such a beautiful, satisfying sit that just made me just say, I'm glad to have been a part of that era. And the movie itself really was committed. And this is what happens when you make competency and just put yourself out there. And that is what I really appreciate most about a movie like this that really tried to be something incredible. This was something I very much really enjoyed. And for that, I got no complaints. This is definitely in my best of the year. You know why I'm giving this. This is cinema. This is Spider-Verse worthy material right here. I love this movie. I loved it. Loved this movie a lot. Definitely watch this and you will actually really quite enjoy a lot of what this movie had to offer. This was great. This was fantastic and I really liked a lot of what this was. And if you are someone who is yet to see this movie, get off your ass and go watch this movie. This is something that I definitely really quite liked and I really enjoyed. So this was overall something that was very entertaining and very enjoyable.
Ultraman Rising, this was a movie that I wanted to do like a quick little review for, but I just put it here, and this is coming from someone who has never seen anything with Ultraman, but for a movie that was released on Father's Day weekend of last year, I actually really quite enjoyed this a lot. I thought that this had a lot going for it in terms of it. The premise of this, of course, is that a star athlete reluctantly returns home to take over his father's duties as Ultraman, shielding Tokyo from giant monsters as he becomes a legendary hero. So you have this beautiful relationship between Ken and the baby Kaiju, which is automatically a reminder of The Mandalorian, and is, for someone I've never watched a lot of the Ultraman, this is a nice little step here. It is a well-paced story, and the characters do burst out on the screen a lot more. So Netflix, you definitely see that they had love for this, or more so the creators here, because the creators of this had a lot more love. And this easily could have been one of my most hateable films last year, but I just wanted to give it a fair chance because it just looked like it could be something entertaining. Now, it's not my favorite animated movie of last year. I still think Inside Out 2 and even The Wild Robots did things a lot more better than this in terms of story, in terms of the characters, but for this little adventure, I was connected a lot for the most part. The moments of action and adventure here are very well done. You could definitely tell that they do manage to have that going for it, and I actually really enjoyed that part of the movie. That was what I was sold on the most. I was also really sold on the fact that the animation is actually really good. It does remind me of the popular Spider-Verse like animation while also incorporating its own unique look to it. I will also say the villain is sympathetic, but you know what? I do wish we had a little bit more in terms of this villain being pure evil, but you know what, for what we got, I was able to enjoy it here. I also really liked the rest of the voice acting here, as Christopher Sean as KJ Sado. I liked his performance, and I also really liked his character arc, and it was beautiful character arc for him. Professor Sado, Jedi Watanabe does a very good job. Tamlin Tomita does a good job. Keon Young Julia Harriman. So a lot of the voice acting here is very good here. The son is adorable, of course, very adorable, very beautiful. I actually really liked how adorable they made him. And the baby kaiju, he sticks around. They don't kill him off, and just the directing here was very good. I very much liked the direction of the story. The characters are entertaining enough. I really enjoyed those characters. I also really enjoyed the performances here. Again, the score I actually think is sentimental and it's actually really beautiful here. And I really enjoy that you have some great character interactions that were just very entertaining to watch. I also liked the film cinematography here. It really was shot decently well for a film like this. I really enjoyed that cinematography aspect to it. And this is an animated film, but you know what? I definitely do enjoy a lot of what this does know where this is gonna go, and it commits to it. But I was just very impressed at how beautiful the story was. You know, if there was more Ultraman stuff like this in the future, maybe I might give it a shot. I really don't have much complaints. I thought the direction was good, the writing of the story was handled, the characters were well handled. I also very much like the pace here, and just is how vibrant and how colorful it is. So in conclusion, this is something that while I was afraid of that I was not going to enjoy this, I actually quite enjoyed Ultraman Rising, and it was one of my favorite films of last year. And I look forward to pretty much talking about this and getting my thoughts on this in my best movies of last year. Again, it's one of my favorites, if not the favorites. But I thought overall the movie did its job and it did what it set out to do. So in conclusion, if you are a kaiju fan or Ultraman fan, you can definitely watch this. I am definitely recommending this. This is not something that is gonna go down as one of my favorite animated movies of all time, but I will say overall it's worth the shot. And for Father's Day last year, considering how I love my dad, this is actually a lot better than what I thought it could have been. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this one walk away with another positive grade, even though a lot of the movies have been very mixed matched in this. So in conclusion, I will say this is definitely going to be a Spider-Verse seal of approval. I actually really enjoyed this a lot, and for what we got, it's actually really amazing that we actually have a movie like this. So overall, it's very fun, and it's definitely worth the try. So you have another good one here in the animated category. Again, like I say, it's no Inside Out 2 or anything, but I definitely do enjoy this one overall.
Darkness of Man. In Darkness of Man, this is the latest JCVD movie, of course, and I gotta tell you, this one was actually pretty decent. It's pretty decent for what we got. This was a decent watch that I quite really liked, and I very much enjoyed what this had to offer in here. But this was also a very heartbreaking and heart-wrenching film that I thought was actually very competent as well. So this movie is a little heartbreaking because you know there is a certain tragedy when it comes to one of the actors in this movie, but I want to go ahead and talk about it right now. This is the last movie for the late Shannon Doherty, who is no longer with us. Rest in peace, Shannon Doherty. You were a very strong actress. Wish you were still here with us, but like I said, cancer sucks. So obviously, I will say this when it comes to this movie. The premise of this movie, of course, is you follow the Russell Hatch, who's an Interpol officer who takes on the role of a father figure to Jaden, who is the son of an informant killed, of course, in the situation that he went wrong. And so Hatch finds himself protecting him and his grandfather from a group of merciless gangs in an all-out turf war to stop nothing to protect Jaden and fight along anyone who gets in his way. I will say, for someone who has not seen a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, I still have more of his movies to watch. I will say that this is one of his better ones that I've seen here. This is not a movie that's going to win any awards by any source of the imagination or blow you away. But for a direct-to-video action movie, I did have a decent enough time with it. And I thought that this was actually very competent for what we got. Of course, you do have your usual problems when it comes to this movie, of course. Some of the editing in the action scenes are not always the greatest here. You can definitely feel that in terms of what you're getting here. So that is something I actually think is a bit problematic and a bit competent enough to see what they were doing here. I will also say, for the movie, of course, the writing, of course, is not great. There's some very stilted writing in this movie. I really thought that this needed at least another rewrite, because some of the dialogue in here is very rough. It's really rough to watch, and I'm like, wow, some of this dialogue is not very great. And also, I will say, another one of my issues with some of the questionable decisions here, and it is a story that we've seen before, but I was willing enough to go along with it, and some of the editing and pacing and camera work can be a little faulty. Also, some actors like Shannon Doherty gets underused here, which again, not her fault. This was her very last movie, so I did have to take that into consideration. But what does save this movie is it makes an interesting watch, is some of this action in this movie for a direct-to-video JCVD movie is mostly competent here. I will say the movie looks, and it is directed competently here in terms of direction here. I will enjoy a lot of what this was going on here, and I did have a good time watching this premise play out. Jean-Claude Van Damme, again, I still need to choose more of his movies I want to see. I'm picking and choosing. But I will say, the guy in his interviews, he, despite his health problems and despite what he's gone through in a few situations, he is still a humble guy in interviews, the few interviews that I've seen of him. And he sounds like an actor and fighter that you'd be really interested to see what else he does in his career. He's still a more respectable martial arts person in acting than an egotistical maniac like Steven Seagal, which he's retired. But I will say he does a pretty decent job in his role. Kristanna Loken, who is still so beautiful, of course, and she's a decent actress herself despite a whirlwind of movies or show decisions that's not been the greatest. I'm looking at you, Blood Rain, but she did a pretty good job. Emerson Men, Spencer Breslin, Sticky Fingers, and the late Shannon Doherty also get some good moments here. So I will say the acting is pretty solid here. Technical aspects, for the most part, is decent enough, but some of it, all that great in terms of what you're getting here. And I will say that I was at least entertained here for a majority of this movie's pace. So that is something I will definitely say that I was enjoyed by. it really just went straight in and out. And for an hour and 40 minutes, it can be a little bit slow. It can be a little bit too long here. And also the voiceover I don't think is great. But ultimately I will say, for what this was, I had a decent time with it here. Now, this is not one of the best action movies ever made, but I think there is enough in here to pack a decent punch to warrant a worthy stream it on streaming services. If you have it on streaming services, it is on streaming services like Hulu or Apple TV Plus or Amazon Prime. So you can definitely watch this and give it a chance. Just know that this is not going to be some great masterpiece, and I think you will quite enjoy it. So overall, I did enjoy Darkness of Man for what it is. An hour and 10 minutes later, and that's gonna do it for the first half of this 2024 movie review roundup. Now, there is still quite some movies in the next review roundup I do want to get to, whether it's pre-record, quick reviewed, or standalone reviewed, or live stream reviews. But this is a way to kind of help me get back in balance with the channel fully, and I do hope you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts on any of these movies in the description box down below. Time codes will be available for this, and with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye, and stay epictastic and keep it cool.
This is another movie I wanted to do a full-length review on, and that was for A Complete Unknown, James Mangold's new film, and it was worth the Oscars nominations that it got. It tells the story of Bob Dylan as he arrives in New York with his guitar and revolutionary talents, and so he forms his most intimate relationships during his rise to fame. He grows restless with the folk movement, making a controversial choice that reverberates worldwide. I'm a big fan of James Mangold, and I love James Mangold's movies like 310 to Yuma, The Wolverine, Logan, Identity, Walk the Line. Dial of Destiny, I'm one of the few people who actually don't hate it. It's got its problems, but I don't think it's that bad here. But this was a nice return to form here, and I'll say this was actually a very solid movie. Now, is it better than Walk the Line and such? No, but I will say for what we got in this, I think it's actually a very good story. Timothée Chalamet, he is fantastic in this movie, and you can see why this movie got 8 nominations, including Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Supporting Actress for Monica Barbaro, who she is amazing, by the way. But Timothée Chalamet is Bob Dylan. This is one of my favorite performances, and I think he really does a very good job in terms of what is given here. The performance is really strong. I loved what he gives, and just he not only acts very well as Bob Dylan, but he also sings really well as Bob Dylan. So I thought he was really fantastic in the role. You also got Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, and I like this man as an actor, but I just don't like him as a person. It's something about him, the way he comes off in some of his interviews and such. It's like, why you have to be such an ass? I don't know why, but you know what, I will say, as an actor, I think he does a good job in this movie, and he's always been an actor I do like. And Elle Fanning, I thought, was fantastic as well as Sylvie Russo. She's based on Dylan's girlfriend at the same time, but I really enjoy her performance. She's not in the movie as much, which is one of my criticisms between her and Joan, but I will say Elle did a very good job. But Monica Barbaro, she really surprised me. I knew she was great from Top Gun Maverick and such, but I was not prepared at how great she was going to be in this, and she really just committed her A game, and I really thought she did a very, very strong job in this. She was awesome as Joan. I also really enjoyed Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash, Dan Fogler as Albert Grossman. You have Norbert Leo Butz as Alan Lomax. A lot of the performances in this movie are very great here, so everyone does a really strong job in this. It's very well shot from a cinematography standpoint. It looks great, like it looks like a film for $50-70 million. I also really enjoyed especially how it's not giving you like a full-on childhood like such. You're just following him when he is going to New York City and going through all of that, and that is the thing that I really enjoyed when it comes to that. So very much a great performance, which was absolutely fantastic, and I thought the filmmaking was really good here. I very much like the editing here is very well edited in terms of a lot of the performances here. I also really love the performances here. So the music here is also really, really good as well. And just by the time this movie ended, I feel like I got to know who Bob Dylan was. I will say one of my only criticisms of this movie is for 140 minutes, it's very quick, but there was a few things, like I said, you could focus a little bit more on Gene and Elle Fanning's characters. I wanted to know more about them as well. And for someone who's not a big Bob Dylan fan, this made me like some of his music here. So, and for the 140 minutes, it does have a little bit of a slow spot here. But you know what? Coming from someone who's not a Bob Dylan guy and only like a few of his songs, I'm genuinely shocked at how much I really enjoyed this movie now. Is it one of the best movies ever of 2024? It's an honorable mention, but this almost made my best of. But I will say the Oscar nominations was well deserved here, and I disagree with anyone who says it wasn't. I thought this was a fantastic film. You should all check it out. It's on physical media soon, and it will be on streaming. So definitely watch this. This was a great biopic, and it's gonna go down as one of my favorites. So for that, James Mangold gets a lot of credibility, and for the 140 minutes, and while it's not your typical standard biopic and you don't get to know a lot about his private life as such, I will say this worked for me. So I'm definitely giving this an Epictastic. Definitely watch this. This was fantastic. Okay, so when it comes to Descendants Rise of Red, I initially had a full-length review of this ready to go on one of my older phones, but we had some complications and it didn't work out. So here I am adding it to this. So as a fan of the first three Descendants movies, believe it or not, even with their issues, I was not looking forward to Rise of Red because I didn't really see a point of them doing this. I didn't see a reason why they had to continue on after the unexpected tragic death of Cameron Boyce. And the third Descendants movie seemed like a pretty solid ending to the entire series. But once I found out this was going to be a spin-off that was going to be its own thing, I became a little bit more interested in it. But I was still pretty unsure of what this was going to be. And fortunately, having given it a fair chance, I actually really quite liked Rise of Red. Now, it's not the first three, and I won't even say it's a good movie, but I'll say it's a decent enough entry that kind of warrants its existence for a spin-off. And if you're gonna continue this kind of franchise, the spin-off with new characters is kind of your only way to go, even though I still feel the same sentiments. But the premise of this one is that we have the Queen of Hearts' daughter, Red, and she goes to Auradon after a little crazy stunt in Wonderland, and so she teams up with the daughter of Cinderella and Prince Charming as they go back in time to undo the evil ways of Red's villainous mother. I will say the best thing this movie has going for it is, of course, Kylie Cantrell, which I really liked her in Wrong Gone Wrong, but here as Red, I think Kylie Cantrell, she brings a lot to it. She doesn't try to copy what Dove Cameron or Sophia Carson or those actors have done in the past. She is her own beast. And for the character of Red, I actually really found her enjoyable. I found her a lot of fun. And she was just entertaining to watch. I really enjoyed the way Kylie Cantrell was able to give a very strong performance. But I also really loved what she was able to bring in terms of dancing and music, and it's pretty clear as to why she's gonna come back for another one, since they are doing more of this franchise, these spin-offs with these characters. And she was awesome as Red. Malia Baker as Chloe Charming, I think does a very good job as well. I thought she did a good job at being the daughter of Prince Charming and Cinderella and Chad Charming. Dara Renee as Juliana, I thought was pretty good. You also had Joshua Colley and Melanie Paxton and Paola Montalban coming back, which that was pretty nostalgic since I really liked the 1995 one. And I also really enjoyed seeing Melanie Paxton and China McClain back as Uma and the Fairy Godmother, who are the head mistress. There are a few Easter eggs to the original film in the portraits, but I love the introduction, the way they're able to just give loving respect to Cameron Boyce, which I thought was actually very good, and I very much loved what they were able to give in terms of what he had to offer. And it was a very touching tribute. The visuals here for a Disney Plus little streaming film, these could have been a lot worse. There are some effects here that doesn't look the best, and some of it actually does look okay in some spots. But I will say for what we got in this, I really liked. And Jennifer Fang does a decent job for the most part for this. The costumes are also really beautiful, and you have the production designer of the original trilogy here. And so I very much liked a lot of what they were able to give here in this. So there's a lot that they were able to play with this time around. I also really enjoyed seeing Rita Ora as the Queen of Hearts. Now, she's not my favorite interpretation of the Queen of Hearts, but I think she does a decent job here for the most part. And she does bring the singing chops, so if you want to hear Rita Ora sing, that's awesome. You get it here. Ruby Rose Turner as Bridget, the young Queen of Hearts star, was a good job. I also liked Morgan Dudley as well. The musical numbers, not as strong as the musical numbers in the original trilogy, but there are some musical numbers which I was actually really loving. There are some musical numbers that I had a very entertaining time with, especially Red's song. I thought that was great, and I thought it was actually a very good introductory song. Some of the songs range from entertaining to not as great. So some of the songs were good, some of the songs were okay, but they do the best they can for the songs here. Technical aspects aside, I like the way the movie is shot. I like the way the movie is framed, is lit very well for the most part. For a streaming service movie, I'm surprised. And I will say, for 94 minutes for a new Descendants film, this could have been a lot worse. I fully expected this to not work. The things that does hold this back for me, unfortunately, is that, like I said, there are some moments here in some of the CGI that does not hold up. I will also say there are some character decisions made that are not the best in the writing. Also, some of the pacing is a little bit too quick in a few areas, and also the biggest criticism is I don't like how abruptly this one ends, but since we have another one coming, I'm willing to kind of let that slide and just see what they can do with it. Even though my sentiments of this franchise still hold supreme, it's a miracle that they actually came up with something competent, because this could have gone really bad. This could have really been one of the worst things I've ever seen, but because there was still some effort put into it, I was still able to get into it and enjoy this one for what it was. Like I said, the first three movies are still better, but you know what? With Kylie Cantrell as Red, there's not only potential for her in this franchise as that character, but there's also potential for Kylie Cantrell in general, because I would like to see what else Kylie Cantrell can do in terms of acting and in terms of music. There's a lot of potential with Kylie Cantrell here. So, in conclusion, Rise of Red turned out to be a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. It could have been worse. It's nowhere near as strong as the first three. It does have its problems. If you are a Descendants fan like me, I think you can enjoy this. And I think you can at least get some entertaining factor out of this. But if you are someone who's not been a big fan of these Descendants movies, this one is not going to do anything to change your mind. But if you're willing to give this a fair shake, I would say give it a watch. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a stream this thing. It was worth a surprising watch on Disney Plus. The Wild Robot. This is a movie that I know a lot of people really love. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I am a fan of DreamWorks animation. I really am. I really enjoy a lot of their movies. They're none. Like the Shrek movies, the Trolls movies I really like. I also really enjoy movies like the How to Train Your Dragon movies and such. And then there are some movies I don't really care for, like The Boss Baby and such. I still have not seen Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I still have not. But you know what? DreamWorks, I'm really enjoying this little resurgence here when it comes to it. So, I'll say this. While I don't personally see this as a Best Animated Feature nominee, even though you could argue this or Inside Out 2 or any of those could have won, I'll say this. This is a very, very good film. I was genuinely shocked how much I enjoyed this, because I saw the trailers for this and I put this off for so long because I was skeptical, I was judgmental, and I just kind of looked at it and had a different opinion on this before I watched it. I thought this looked generic from the trailers, but this actually had a lot more heart when it comes to it, and really wowed me at a lot of heart that this movie does. And shows you when DreamWorks hits, they always successfully hit. And they have movies where even if it's not up to par and not better than Disney or Disney Pixar or even Sony Pictures Animation, with some movies like Spider-Verse or even Mitchell's vs. Machines or even Underrated Gem or even Studio Ghibli, I gotta tell you, this was an emotionally beautiful, wrenching film. Pretty much your story here is that we have Lupita Nyong'o voicing Ross, and so she's stranded on an inhabitant island, and so to survive the harsh environment, she bonds with the island's animals and cares for a baby goose. And this movie, wow, this movie hit me. Like, if you are parents or if you have siblings, this is going to get you emotionally. I didn't cry, but it definitely get me into sentimental, emotional feels. and pretty much makes you want to just call your siblings and call your mom or dad or anyone, even your wife or future girlfriend or such, and say, I love you and I appreciate you, because this was just so damn heart-wrenching. And I sat there when it comes to this story and the environmental themes, and also the fact that this will tells you as a parent or as a person, this was just a very beautiful film. It's just an incredible type film when it comes to it. The humor is very well landed. It's really freaking funny. I loved the humor in here. I was very much enjoying a lot of what it goes for. I very much love the animation. It is gorgeous animation. It's incredible. And I just think the animation looks beautiful. It looks so crisp and so clean. You could tell that Chris Sanders directs this with competency, and the writing and the editing is really well done. I also very much love the score of this movie here. So the score is something to definitely behold about. The voice acting from everyone is top notch. Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, Bill Nighy, Stephanie Hsu, Mark Hamill, Catherine O'Hara, Matt Berry, Vin Rames. Everyone is great. It has its themes about parenthood, and it got its point across. The reason why this is not a 5 out of 5 for me is because I think there are some people who really overhyped this movie like it was nothing. Now, I get the praise, I can't deny it, but one of the greatest animated DreamWorks films ever, I wouldn't think so. And also, there were some moments of humor that just didn't really work for me, and some characters I wanted a little bit more of, but I couldn't really help but just be invested into what this movie was going for, and I was really impressed with a lot of what this has to say. I loved a lot of these characters, I loved a lot of the story, and I was just really, really entertained by a lot of what this movie had to give me. So DreamWorks really shows they can still be great and they can still be awesome, even if they have a few movies that are not so good. So I will have to say right now, DreamWorks Animation, you did your job. So that was just really awesome, that the fact that they did that. So in conclusion, I will say, if you are a fan of the animated movies like this and sentimental value, definitely watch this. It's definitely earning of its Best Picture nomination in terms of animation, and I was just really impressed with this. This is a prime example of expecting the unexpected, and I'm so glad I did give this a fair chance like I did. Again, a little overhyped. I don't think this movie is the greatest DreamWorks animated movie ever, but I will say right now, for what I expected, this could have been a lot worse. So I'm very surprised that I'm actually going to give this a better than Vampire Diaries. This was just a fantastic film that really justified everything it was doing, and I'm very happy this is going to be a franchise. So I can't wait to see what the sequel is going to be. Better than Vampire Diaries for sure. And finally, to wrap this up, we're gonna conclude this with The Killer's Game. The Killer's Game, this was a movie that I went in, I'm probably one of the only few people who actually saw this, but honestly, some people didn't really care for this one, but you know what, I took this for what it was. Now, it's not something great, and I went in here with this one pretty cold due to a lot of negative reviews for some people, and also seeing the very, very big low response from this. But you know, I went into this one with an open mind, and I wanted to give it a fair chance. I think it kind of deserves. And you know what, I'll say this here, I definitely liked this more than Then My Spy 2. This is another Dave Bautista movie I did see. But you know what? It's not something great, and maybe a little underrated, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure. Now, if you are into movies like this, definitely give it a chance. But if this is something that is a bit too much for you and a bit too craziness, this is not gonna be for you. But I'll say this right now, I did like this premise here, okay? Yes, it definitely is made for a certain demographic, but you know what? This is what I wanted to see. It's not an Academy Award winning type movie, but you know what? This is simply made to entertain. And for me, this movie is outlandish, it's stupid, it's violent, it has personality, it's not too serious, and it can be out of control, but I did enjoy this. This was directed by J.J. Perry, and you have top hitman Joe Flood as he is diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he decides to take matters into his own hands by taking out a hit on himself. But the very hitman that he also hires targets the ex-girlfriend, and he must fend off an army of assassin colleagues and win back the love of his life before it's too late. This movie has no boundaries at all. It takes you into a scenario where realistic stuff doesn't really exist. So if you're using your brain and you're using logic, take that out of the window. But I will start off easily, just getting it out of the way right now with Sofia Boutella is gorgeous in this movie. I love her in this movie. I think she's a decent actress for what I've seen. Kingsman, Climax, Atomic Blonde, Star Trek Beyond was her best work. I liked her in The Mummy, but I'm still waiting for her to get that one movie to where she really showcases who she really can be. But you know what? For this, I will say she does do a pretty decent job in this, and also it helps that she is attractive, so I will honestly give her that. So she may not be one of the greatest out there, but I think she's a decent actress. But second lead, and mainly the main lead, is Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista is here, is having fun. It's good to see him flex his acting chops here. I've really been enjoying a lot of what Dave Bautista's been going on, man. Doing stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and the Guardians movies and Thor, Doom 1 and 2. The man is a great professional wrestler turned actor, and I think he's one of the best. He's awesome in this. You also have people like, of course, Terry Crews is great, Ben Kingsley is great. So many other actors in here I think are also really doing a very good job here. Andrew Galloway, Shayna West. I was very surprised with Lucy Cork here, which I've never seen her in anything, but she is a stunt woman. She's done stunts for a lot of movies I like. But she's also did things like Black Widow, which I was very surprised looking up. And here, she's also pretty badass here as an assassin. Also, she's pretty cool and pretty attractive as well. So I will give her that. She does do a very strong job with what she has to give. It's not one of her greatest performances, but she has some potential here. But also, I will say everyone else here, like Marco Zorro and such, all those actors I think do a very decent enough job. There's a few people in this cast that I thought could have been a little better, which we'll get to. But you have some good action set pieces here. It's decently directed, and it's a nice little entertaining throwback to one of those 90s action throwback films that you get to see. It does have some fun moments here. It's pretty insanity. It's pretty over the top and ridiculous. And Sofia Boutella and Dave Bautista, they work very well off of each other. She gives out the romance side of the movie, and also he gives the more level-headed side, so it's nice to see that. The cinematography is pretty much whatever here. The editing is pretty competent for an hour and 44 minutes, so you get in and out. The music here is entertaining, and there are some moments where I laughed with some of the comedy here. There are some issues here, of course, when it comes to this. The script itself is not great, and if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, you're not gonna like this all that much. So I will say this right now, because there are some decisions in the writing and some character development that could have easily been useful here. So that's one of the things I will give credit to, because that is a little bit, yeah, whatever. The CGI blood at times, I know this is a rated R, but that just looks a little noticeable. But you know what, it's not some of the worst effects here. Also, I will say there is some narrative stuff I wish that could have been fixed a little bit better here. So that is the kind of stuff that, yeah, it could have been a little better. And also, you have two people in this cast I thought could have been better. Scott Adkins, he's not a bad actor whatsoever. He's a decent actor, but he's not always the best for when I see him. But he does have some decent moments. He is a professional wrestler, so I thought he could have been better here. It's not really much to him. But the biggest soul-crushing disappointment is Palm Klimativ as her own character, as an assassin character named Antoinette. I love Palm Klimativ. She is beautiful. She is attractive. I loved her ever since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But here, it feels like she either is not doing the best job, or she's just phoning it in. And unfortunately, I feel like while she does be badass, she kind of just phones this in and not really give much into the performance. So that she also overdoes well. So those are really my only real gripes when it comes to this, because I'm here with this one for at least 18 to 24 minutes. Just make this a short and concealed, despite the time codes of some of these here. But overall, I will say, if you're looking for some stupid fun, there's not much you could do badly. Overall, this is a decent watch. I would say know what you are getting yourself into before you watch this movie, because I'll tell you now, if you go into this thinking this is going to be high art, you're really not gonna like this all that much. So I will say that right now. But if you can just turn your brain off and have some decent fun, which I kind of am getting exhausted with saying shut your brain off, because with action movies like this, you could expect a lot more. But if it's going for a stupid tone, you could do a lot worse here. So I'm gonna go ahead and say you could stream this. Definitely one of my newfound guilty pleasures. And with that being said, that's going to conclude this very entertaining but ambitious 2024 review roundup part 1. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a second one, but for anything else I don't review or haven't reviewed, you can find my thoughts on those on Letterboxd, or I could do like a quick 3-minute to 2-minute review here. So there are still a few movies individually I do want to talk about that I haven't yet, like Wicked or such. I still have not seen Wicked, still have not seen Gladiator 2 or War of the Rohirrim, so you'll get those at a later date. But this was just a little fun video I wanted to do. And so if you enjoy videos like this, definitely look on the channel. You'll find more playlists of reviews for movies or shows, even review roundups like this. And with that, I'll see you guys later. And with that, I'm gonna leave you guys with the outro. See you later.
Well, that's gonna do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.